before we get into the topic of how to integrate cultural-based learning into the classroom, I'm going to call out the white elephant in the room, which is me. I'm white. So I'm not the authority on cultural stories. Instead, I work with cultural educators, and I'm basing this on my experience of working with them and their input. I'm not the person to go to if you have a question on how to portray a specific culture in the classroom. I would refer you instead to a member of that culture, because that's not my expertise. It's just on how to work with people of different cultures because of the variety of cultural educators I have worked with. So some examples, different examples of how to integrate cultural-based learning into the classroom can be found in a wide variety of outlets. One of my favorite podcasts is called Better Leaders, Better Schools by Danny Bauer. And in this podcast, he explores different styles of teaching from all over. And there's one gentleman on there called Dr. ABC. I think he's in maybe the second season, third season or so. And he talked about a school in Canada that had a high Caribbean demographic. And what they did was they took the Canadian anthem and they put it to a reggae beat. I thought that was just phenomenal. Can you imagine that? Like the kids in that classroom feeling like this national anthem applies to them because the style of the music was in something that they could connect with. Also, bringing the flags of the students of their own nationality or their own people into the classroom could also be important. You could enlist help from the students or from the students' parents in doing this. You could even just use pictures and other types of representation, put them up in the classroom so each of the kids feel that their culture is welcome inside that classroom. Something else that takes a little more effort, but it can really yield phenomenal engagement results, is if teachers would spend some time finding out more about the cultures. So say send home a little homework assignment to write about your own culture, or even a questionnaire for the younger kids. And then taking time to assign, if you have a class on literature, taking time to assign poems and stories from that child's culture. So doing a little research, even asking for assistance from librarians or, again, the parents or cultural centers on finding stories and poems from that culture. And to go a step further is to ask the parents to come on in and actually read those stories in their first language. It's a wonderful way for the kids to hear their parents' first languages in a public environment, and for other kids to witness that themselves. You can also play this really neat exercise called Walking with Different Perspectives. This is an exercise that was explained to me by Janine Letford, who I mentioned earlier. This idea is that you just take a walk somewhere with somebody who has different knowledge than you or a different cultural background than you, and listen to their perspective on what they see and what it means to them. And remember, it doesn't have to it's not just talking about ethnicity or language. It can also just be hobbies and interests. As an example, when I go out for a little walk in nature with my husband, he is a hobbyist in ornithology. So but interestingly enough, ornithology, the study of birds, he birds by ear. He's actually has limited vision in one eye, and so he's specialized on being able to name birds by their song. And all he needs is a tiny snippet of that song, and he can identify a bird. So it's fascinating. As we're walking along in a wooded trail, and I'm seeing 3, maybe 4 birds, and at any point I can stop and say, "How many birds have you heard on our walk?" And he'll name off 1 dozen, 2 dozen birds that he's heard as we were walking along, and I was oblivious to. Same thing if you go for a walk with a plant biologist, and they can tell you about all the different plants in the area, or even somebody who knows about plant folklore and can tell you stories, mythological stories about the different plants in the area. Each of these can really bring a different perspective and really make your experience of simply walking in the woods wonderfully diverse. Also, because we're social beings, you should try to make learning social. So if you make smaller pods of, say, four or so students, and you give the students an opportunity to talk about their own cultures and kind of parallel them with each other. Talk about, what does this particular food mean in this culture, and what type of celebrations may inspire what type of food. And let another student talk about what that kind of food or a different type of food means in their culture. So there are a lot of different ways you can make these social opportunities for kids to learn about each other's cultures.